I knew it always. I knew it a year ago. And I knew like I shouldn't be scared financially. I find myself in the best position ever in my life. But somehow I didn't see that. I had nightmares about this after like 6 months and a lot of inner work, psychedelics that really helped me to look at myself and see that thing that is no longer for me.
What do you think you needed to rewire that the psychedelic helped you with? Marc Samuel, welcome to the Deeply Aligned podcast. I read recently on one of your Instagram posts, it said, the last 2.5 years has been a war for me.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to start of like, walk me back through of how did those last couple of years look like, and yeah, how did life look like then?
Yes, that's actually a good starting point because it's the start of my journey that brought me exactly here today. So looking back 2.5 years, I got out of a relationship and I was just completely lost. I was at a place I really thought like, where am I? Who am I? I was heavily addicted to weed. My mind was just a mess, and yeah, it was that one day. It was that one day when God like looked at me and he said like, "Wow, I gotta give that guy a little kick in his ass." And yeah, he really like took my head and smashed me on the floor, and like everything was just gone. And I was like, wow, okay, what is this? But at that moment, I knew like that's my chance for getting back the life and really create the life that I want for me. So yeah, that was the starting point. And yeah, I'm trying, there's this whole movie going on in my head. It was that time like I just switched my job. So I went from my current employer to a client of mine to work internally. I work in IT, or did work in IT, by the way. And I was like, hey, that's one thing I want to do. Like I've been working for IT service providers all the time, and I wanted to have the experience of an internal position. And I saw an opportunity, and I've been with the other company for like 5-6 years. And yeah, but it was also that time I realized like, wow, I don't want to do that anymore. You know, like it wasn't the thing I was looking for. I hoped like, okay, just changing the job, just changing coworkers, the project is going to magically dissolve all the problems. Right. And yeah, it was that time. Yeah, I said to myself like, hey, this is not going anywhere. And for my whole life, I always wanted to have my own stuff, my own company, which is just for me like freedom, right? Yeah. That's what I thought. And yeah, I saw this opportunity, and I founded my own company.
Nice. So like a 9-to-5 IT, went more into consulting or a completely different company?
Yeah, so no, I basically just continued what I was doing. And I became self-employed at the first time. So of course, I had my company, the complete setup and stuff, and I was just charging like 4 times or 5 times more than I was earning as an employee. Yeah. But I was more or less doing the same stuff, you know.
Yeah. All the previous benefits.
Yes.
With some additions, more money, maybe more free time, or at least control over your schedule and stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely. So I was definitely working less and earning more, and yeah, that that was nice at the beginning, you know. However, yeah, I never felt this commitment to the company. You know, there were challenging moments, or when I thought like, hey, let's grow this company, or let's do some sales calls, let's go further. There was always this resistance.
What do you think was missing?
It was just not the thing that fulfilled me.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And like today, looking backwards, I can say that this feeling of being disaligned with my job, that started maybe even 2 or 3 years before I founded my company. Yeah. I just saw this as a one way to like one more step towards freedom and the thing that I wanted to do. So I took the chance, but yeah, I had to realize like, wow, that's actually not my thing. And being in this disalignment, there's so much, how do you describe that? Like
friction.
Yeah. And I always judge myself like, hey, you should do it, and you have the power, and why don't you? And it was constant like a back and forth.
Yeah, that makes sense. What I'm hearing is basically, because I've been trying to put words onto this through my own journey of like, what are the things that's missing in our 9 to 5s usually? Could be in a business also, but usually on 9 to 5. There's a great book by Daniel Pink, it's called Drive. And he talks about there's a need for autonomy, which is a freedom to do and work in whatever way you want to work. Like you go like, we can do this better. Maybe we should do this project. But then the boss says, no, we've always done it like this, and that's how we're going to do it. And then you need to come in at a certain schedule, 9 to 5. And then you don't have the time freedom in general either. So that's autonomy. Then you have mastery of like, you want to grow and learn something new. You want to keep on evolving on a personal level as well. And then you have the purpose, like you talked about, like where's the alignment, like what's the meaning of this, behind this? Is there anything meaningful reason where the company is trying to go, and is that aligned with like what I want to do with my life? So if you don't have those three, then usually it creates this friction, and it can build up over time where the pain is eventually so big that you go like, no, I need to make a change. Is that how it was?
Yeah, I think so. So what happened is, I would say I went into a depressive state, right? Because all of these things didn't make sense. I wasn't aligned with that, and yeah, I just always knew like, hey, I gotta change something.
What went through your head at the time? Like you knew you wanted to change something. You knew you didn't want to keep on going like this. You needed changes. Do you remember like, what's my options here? Like, and obviously you said, start your own thing, consulting there. And yeah, keep us walking us through that track, I suppose. Did it feel better?
Excuse me, can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. So if you try to remember back in time of like, you became aware of that you want to change. So now like, what were you gonna change into? What was your options?
In terms of the company, or like the whole life?
In terms of your life path.
Yeah.
Maybe career path, so to speak, to get more freedom.
Yes. So, yeah, to gain more freedom, it's sorry, my mind is going somewhere.
It's okay.
So maybe I'll go back a little bit. When I was about to start the company. So one thing that was very important for me was my mental and my physical well-being.
Yeah.
So it was not just like the company or the money, but it was also relationship and health, mental health, physical health, because yeah, when you grow, of course, you can focus on one area and you can push forward. But if you do not grow in any other area, you eventually stuck at one point, right? And you got to fix maybe your physical health to grow further and further and further. So I really went into this holistic self-development phase for the last 2.5 years. So I started to work out, I did Muay Thai, I gained knowledge about physical health, nutrition, while still trying to get off weed. So that was a very, very tough one. It still took me like 1.5 years to completely get off. Fighting against your inner demons, and also the things that I thought I was missing, like I found myself then being needy around other people. I went through a party phase, of course, again.
Of course.
Did all the things, and just to eventually realize, hey, I also got to change in there, and it was just step by step in every area. And when it came to the company, it was just my vehicle that got me going and brought me more autonomy in my whole life. So I started to live the days how I wanted to live. So I was able to go to the gym in the afternoon and didn't need to worry about any business stuff, or I could just take a day off, or like doing whatever I needed to do. Yeah.
There was room for more responsibility, so to speak, step by step, because now one is out of the 9 to 5 and self-employed, and there's more responsibility towards yourself, more responsibility towards how you want to run your days.
Yes.
Structure them, habits, daily routines.
That was all new. Yeah. That was all new, and it's still new because I just recently had this breakthrough, but probably we get back to that later. For sure. But yeah, I mean, having my own company, that was somehow, it was very normal, I never gave myself the credits for it, because I was just like, that's just normal. I got to do this. Like, that's the least I can do. But then, dealing with the responsibility, that was new, right? Yeah. But there was so much growth happening, and it was challenging, of course. Like every day, every week, like, oh, did I do the right thing? Oh, did I satisfy my clients? Did I look after myself, family, friends, like everything? I just felt like, hey, I hold so much more responsibility, and it's a huge opportunity, right? Yeah. So if you master that, if you really become the director of your life, you can live an amazing life. However, it's also up to you if you, when you end up being in a dark place, it's your responsibility also to get out of that again, right? Totally.
Now, we talked about responsibility a lot of times, right? And I heard you say this also. I need to take ownership of my life. I need to design it. And you don't just do that in like 10 minutes a day. It's a regular practice and a marathon journey, which is this life we are blessed to experience. And it seems like it started over there, where slowly you're starting to take responsibility and design your life more and more.
Yeah, we could say it really started there. However, yeah, it took quite some time to really see the big picture and to really get it, right? So coming back to the 2.5 years of being in a battle, it was just a constant up and down, you know? Like one day I felt like, wow, yes, company, let's go. I see the opportunities and stuff, and then I end up again like, so you're like, oh no, that's actually not what I want to do, and you were, yeah, just constantly confronted with the full spectrum that the human experience gives you.
Yeah. Yes, and we talked about this many times also, right? Where the more and more we mature and get experience, now we start to realize that every time we hit such a wall, when we're coming down again and like, ooh, like friction, this, fear, doubt, anxiety. Now we know it's more like, oh, that's a sign, and an opportunity on the other hand.
So true. Yes, yes. There is always light at the end of the tunnel, and yeah, you got to go through the dark, right, to even know how the good looks like and what good actually is and what is good for you, right?
Yeah.
It's so distinctive.
Yes.
Everyone is individual, so what's good for you is probably, yeah, maybe it's also good for me, but
Yeah, the social conditioning there of like, I'm hearing that this is good for everyone, but like, am I taking the time to think about like, is it suitable for me? Let's find out. Awesome, man. How did you get to Bali? What made you decide to start traveling, or was Bali the first place? Or?
Yeah, Bali was the starting point. Yes. So I'll go back a little bit. It was like a year before I went to Bali. I went to Mexico. That was like a year before I went to Bali, and I was looking basically for that kind of nomad lifestyle, and I didn't find it there. So I found myself also like during those 3 weeks in Mexico, I was so depressed because it was my inner state that wasn't right, you know, the company that was such a weight on my shoulder. And when I got back from Mexico, I just had this epiphany of like, hey, now it's like really time to change. And I got that download of like, hey, my country, I just gotta leave it. I just gotta leave it. I always wanted to live abroad. And
What country are you from now again? What country are you from?
Switzerland.
Switzerland.
Yes, very, very small country. I love it. I really love it. However, it's just, I just knew like, hey, it's time to leave. I mean, I've been traveling quite some time, and I've seen places, but I never really lived abroad, right? So it's more of a holiday or like traveling around. So I had this epiphany of like, hey, I gotta leave the country. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And I remember it was all those weeks, man. It was like, yeah, it was a roller coaster. And I remember like at one evening, I was like, hey, what's my purpose? Where do I want to go? Like, what's the point of leaving the country, right? Because I knew like, okay, I can leave it, and it's all going to be nice and fun, maybe for the first couple of days, weeks. But then, what am I going to do there? And I remember this one evening, I looked up on YouTube for this, just like some advice on finding purpose, and I found this TED talk. And dude, that guy, I don't remember which one it was. I wasn't able to find it, but he asked some questions to find purpose. So, and one question was, what would you do if money and the opinion of others wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I wrote down was no more IT. Right? So, and I love to.
Love that.
I at least knew like what I'm not, what I don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge friend of mind maps. It just helps me like to, and I get into this flow state, and I just wrote down no more IT, and then like, okay, what is my heart telling me? It's like, okay, music has always been around, right? So I was basically born with music, and I always wanted to go down that road, but I always found myself like being on those two tracks, like the corporate track, and I'll call it the you only live once track, like that.
Yeah.
Because it just like didn't go well together. But yeah, different story. So I had this download, and I remember I stayed up until like 3 a.m, and I was in this high state of like, whoa, this is it. And I feel really drawn to the Spanish language and culture. However, also Latin America. I always felt home when I was around Spanish-speaking people. I also learned Spanish for like 3 years and felt pretty comfortable speaking it. And I was like, hey, why not Spain? Like, wow, it's so. I always felt home. So let's go to Spain.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was. Eventually, I created a vision board with music and like dancing and spirituality, traveling Spain, like my apartment in Spain with a piano, with guitar, music studio and stuff. And that kept me going. And yeah, I remember like for a month I woke up like always at 5 o'clock. Motivational speech like you gotta go and and it just got me going, and I started to make more money. I got the power for the business, even though it was there was so much resistance, right? And yeah, that whole thing like started to grow, started to go. And then I remember the time when I had to tell my friend with whom I was living in an apartment. I had to tell him like, hey, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go to Spain. And it was that, you know, like when you put something out there, it has some how's it called, like diligence. You have
Obligation. Kind
obligation.
Of thing? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. You know. And of course, like every day it was like, oh, shall I really do it? No, yes, I do it. Got me going. And my plan was actually going to Spain in the summer. However, yeah, things things change. I struggled with my company because I was thinking of how can I get rid of it, because I knew like I can go to Spain, but if I bring the company with me, it's not gonna change. It's not gonna change a lot, right? So I'm not living the musician, creative, artist lifestyle now. So why would I do it in Spain, right? Yeah. So it was clear for me I gotta somehow get rid of the company, but I always wanted to get something out of it, right? Not just leaving it there. That's also another story.
Now I see where the puzzle pieces are coming in, though.
Yeah. It's just it's a lot. Coming back to your question then with Bali, why I came to Bali is, it's a lot. So it turned out that Spain, always like, I said like, okay, I'm gonna go there in July. Then it was August, and then like, no, probably September, and more. And somehow it wasn't for me, right? And I made the sale of my company dependent on if I moved to Spain or not. And the sale of my company didn't happen so fast and not the way I wanted to. And as I thought I was dependent on that, so I didn't go to Spain. And I eventually, I I subleased my apartment already, so I had to go back to my mom's place,
Yeah.
which was beautiful. It was an amazing time, and yeah, so I was always wishing for a mentor, someone whom I can look up to, and who can support me holistically, not just in business or not just spiritually or mental health, whatever. And I never found someone, right? I was like, where is he? Where is he? Or she, or whoever. And I remember it was late end of last year. I got to a point where I felt like, hey, you know what? I don't need anyone now. I got it all. I'm ready. I'll just leave. I'll just try it out. And you don't believe it, but in the same week, I got a call from, I would say, more or less a friend. He called me and we talked about mentoring, because he is taking one guy for the next year, and I was on his list, on like the first or the second row. And he reached out to me, and I was like, wow, okay, universe, okay. I don't need a mentor, and now you sent me someone, and I really resonate with that person. And yeah, he was living in Bali that time. He was also he lived in Bali for like 7 years. And I was like, hey, okay, and we started to discuss, and I was wondering like, okay, how can you support me, in what way? Okay, were some things about like personal brands, living the freedom lifestyle, stateless lifestyle, the no paying taxes lifestyle.
Yes, that's also included.
And yeah, I mean, basically he lived that lifestyle since 10 years, and he's an expert in that. And I was like, yes. And I knew like that guy. I gotta go back real quick. So in 2018, I went to Bali, and that was the first time when I met him. He's also from Switzerland, by the way. Yes. And I was so impressed. About how he lived his life together with his fiancée that time. And I was just here for 2 weeks. And I knew like the first moment when he picked me up at the airport. So he was basically the best friend of my partner at that time. So that's how I knew him. He picked us up at the airport, and I knew, like, I looked at his face, and I'm like, dude, that's not the last time you picked me up at the airport, right? And yeah, coming back to the calls and the negotiations, and I was like, hey, yeah, why not? Why not? Like, I finally have a mentor, and I love the fact that I didn't find him, he found me, right? So he reached out to me, and I'm really a believer of like that life is just happening for you. You got to be open, and the right things come towards you. So yeah, then he was still living in Bali, and I was like, hey, okay, why not going to Bali? Plus, I always wanted to go to New Zealand because I have some family there whom I never met. I was like, okay, Switzerland, Bali, New Zealand, yeah, that's on the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I decided to come to Bali for 1 week to enable our mentorship, our journey. He prepared everything. I went to Bali. It was living at his house. Everything was like perfectly prepared for me. The scooter was there, food, everything amazing. And we had a very, very good time, and we instantly like connected like brothers,
yeah.
you know. It was also the very first time I I did mushrooms with him. I have no idea what to expect. But we went on this ride with like bigger bikes, enduros, here in Bali to Kintamani. And yeah, we did that together, and the bond just got so much stronger. And yeah, we really resonated with each other. Yeah, that's how I got to Bali.
Incredible. It's like, if I'm trying to summarize a bit, it's a time when you're ready to let go of things, right? You're letting go of things, whether it's the country that you're currently living in, whether it's you're more and more ready to let go of another big pillar, which is the job, the relationship. Has that already happened or no?
You mean
with your girl?
Oh yeah, that was 2.5 years ago.
Right,
so that was really like the starting point.
Big pillars letting go of, and now the universe goes like, yeah, you're open for new chapters.
Yes.
In comes new amazing things.
Yes, yeah, that's so true. It's about like when you want to become someone or up-level your life, it's more about, right? It's more about letting go of things that are not aligned.
Yeah. I'm going to quote you here, because you said it beautifully before. The journey towards your true self is always the most exciting. Paradoxically, growing is not about adding. It is much more about removing the things that do no longer serve you.
Yes.
Question. Mama Bali has taught you to let go of certain things. You've said that the more you let go and be in the present moment, the more you live, the more peace you find. So besides all of these things that you're mentioning here, and as we're going forward in your journey through the mushroom trips with your newfound mentor, your brother, and experiencing Bali, therefore, the first significant time, what are some more things that you're able to let go of?
Yeah, so a lot of things.
The list is long.
Yeah, the list is long. Like, where should I begin? I mean, let's begin like with the most, with the biggest one, which was the company.
Yeah.
So before I got to Bali, I tried to sell the company, but it didn't happen. And I just said to myself, hey, I'll just go. It's my responsibility. I'll just leave. And I brought the company with me to Bali. Of course, I can work remotely, but it's all up here, right? Yeah. And it took me around like 6 months here in Bali to finally let go of the company. And it was really a let go. I was like, universe didn't want to let that happen. It was
grabbing onto you tightly for a while there.
That was a thing, like having the business plan of like scaling the company to that thing, again, to finding myself on the ground of like, I don't want that anymore. So it was constant back and forth, very depressive at some point.
Big internal process.
Such a big internal process. I knew it always, like I knew it a year ago that I must let go of the company. And I knew like I shouldn't be scared. And I mean, by the way, on the other hand, like financially, I find myself in the best position ever in my life, but somehow I didn't see that. It was a constant back and forth, and I had nightmares. I had nightmares about this, and like after like 6 months and a lot of inner work, also, psychedelics that really helped me to look at myself and see that thing that is no longer for me.
What do you think you needed to rewire? Like, what are the things in your brain that you needed to rewire that maybe the psychedelic mushroom trips helped you with?
Surrendering, finding peace, letting go. Really letting go of something, you know. Probably it was the picture of me seeing myself as a very successful entrepreneur, making the millions, and I think that was pretty much programmed in my ego. Yeah. But it was very subconsciously in there, right? It wasn't, I always knew like, okay, it's not the thing anymore, but deep inside of me, it was that thing, very strong thing that held me back. And
like a lot of self-worth coming from there, of like, I have a successful company.
I think so, yeah, self-worth and also identification, you know. I identify myself with being that guy who has a successful company and making the money and being the leader. And yeah, whereas being an artist and a creative, there's always these cliche of like, okay, the broke artist and you're not going to make any money and it's hard, and people telling you like, okay, why not having a company and doing your artist thing at the side, right?
Yes.
I get this concept, right? And there is something to it, because you can just freely live your artist lifestyle while still having some other income source. But if you look at it from an energy perspective, you're still feeding, you got to put in energy into that chapter as well, right? And you will never be able to fully go down that new road.
I think this is so crucial for anyone listening, like your situation between company and artist, my situation between master's degree, climbing the ladder, having company also on the side. And everyone's saying, that's the normal thing, everyone's saying, why can't you do both? Can't you do a slow transition? And it sounds like the smart thing and the mature thing to do, but like you're saying, it's from an energetically perspective, where you can't give something, going all in on something while you still are having energy and mental real estate occupied on something else that is so also true. Draining you at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. You really got to close that door of your like chapter 1 in order that the next door fully opens, right? If that door is not closed yet, the door to the next chapter is just like, it's open. You can see it, right? And you can feel the breeze and the good what's coming through there, but you really got to close that. And I think that's something I really had to learn, and which was scary for me, right? Like closing that. What's going to happen after that? And
into the unknown.
Yeah.
Scary.
And coming back to psychedelics, that was something I have learned on my 2 very deep psychedelics experiences. And yeah, the last one I first did a mushroom trip, a very deep one, which was I left the planet, and it was just so much, and I wasn't really able to like do the work on that trip. It was just experiencing like, oh shit, okay, but I felt there is something big. There was something big I didn't want it to look at, and I was running away from it. And then after that trip, I did ayahuasca, and that one was really a profound, life-changing experience and a beautiful experience at the same time. And I would say, yeah, it was really that moment, that night, that got me moving. I had my notebook. I bought a new notebook, and while I was on the medicine, I wrote down, like, barely able to read it at the next day. But I wrote down, you gotta give up the company. You gotta let go. Because over the last 6 months, I was still trying to sell the company, right? And I was constantly in negotiations and constantly thinking about, okay, what's the value? And then back and forth, like from 7 figures to 6 figures again. And like, oh, it's going to happen. Oh, it's not going to happen. It's going with this potential buyer, with that potential buyer. It was such a thing. And I was still struggling with defining a price. And I held on to something. I had to realize, like, hey, I just had to let go of the picture of becoming a millionaire with that company, right? I could have continued, and it would have been inevitable to get there. But I was like, what's the point? What's the point? I don't enjoy it. I don't want to hate it, but there were really times I was like, I hated it.
It's like an opportunity cost from, once again, an energetic standpoint. Because people can go, like, whether they worked up their way in a 9 to 5 or put in a lot of years into a company and their own business, they go like opportunity cost in like the finance department of like, what am I giving up on here in terms of like money and status or those kind of things. But then you don't think about like, what are the opportunity costs if I keep on going with this in terms of how I'm gonna feel unhappy, unexcited, drained, maybe depressed, maybe like, and that's taking away from the time I could put into something else, like my other aspirations and dreams going forward.
Yeah, so true. And why are most people doing it? It's money, right?
Yeah. It is.
We gotta have some money. However, that thing will just flow to you, right? If you do the things that you truly enjoy, what is meant for you, where you get into flow state, like it will just come to you. It's another form of energy.
Yeah, it is.
Or a conserved form of energy.
Let's speak about the present / future a bit, going into that side of things. So it seems like you have learned a lot of lessons these days recently of like being more in flow, being more in the present, enjoying, exploring. You're a more freer human being, both like externally but also internally.
Yes.
How does life look like these days?
Yeah, these days it actually just happened. I would say like the major breakthrough happened around 4 weeks ago, which was the letting go of the company, of that big responsibility, and I just felt so much relief. I was like, did this just happen?
Feeling 30 kilos lighter?
Even more. It's like I felt like flying again. And yeah, I got back to Bali and I just felt that change. I just felt that change of, hey, wow, something is now different. And sorry, my mind is going again. Like, Can you? What was the question again?
How does life look like these
Oh.
days?
Yeah, it got so much more easier, so much more in flow, and I just see myself giving myself permission to live again, to be again, and yeah, by basically getting rid of the company, I entered my retirement. So at the moment, I'm not working. I'm doing all the different work like music, art, creativity, working on my body, gaining knowledge, building a tribe. And also I started to remove even more things that were not aligned of me, right? So I found myself here in Bali still sticking to a routine, right? Like, okay, those are my tasks for today, and I had these time blocks of like, okay, I'm gonna do deep work here, and here I'm gonna practice my voice, and here I'm gonna produce beats. And I found out like, hey, that's chapter one, Mark. I don't need that anymore. Like, how couldn't I just go with the flow a little bit more? Because sometimes in the evening I feel such an energy shift, such a power coming to me, a creative power, and I'm like, hey, I just want to produce music right now, right? Like, and I don't have to put myself into a strict routine. That was really like chapter one. And yeah, life has just been flowing beautifully for me, and also removing the things. So one example in music, I'm working on my voice. I also would love to learn the guitar better, and there is music production, but I had to realize like, okay, the one thing that is most aligned at the moment is my voice. So I even put the guitar and the music production to the side, and I said myself, okay, this week I'm just gonna focus on the voice. And dude, I was able to get into that flow state and felt so free. And even by removing it, one day I just felt like, oh, let's produce music, electronic music, and then open up the laptop, and I found myself like doing it 3 hours, but not planning it to do. Yeah, just again, like removing the things you don't feel 100% aligned at the moment. This can change from week to week, from month, year to year, right? And yeah, I made space for life to happen, because life is so much more intelligent than we think, but we gotta give life the space to do its magic work, right?
Yeah, totally.
If you just fill up your schedule with sometimes there's this concept of the 7 out of 10s, the things that are kind of nice, but you wouldn't do it if there would be something else, right?
Yeah. Like we talked about before, it's once again closing doors, right? Now maybe you closed a lot of big doors,
Yeah.
and now you're still decluttering your life with the smaller doors.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more room for, anything really.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
you
that's
can
true.
feel into your body and your own intuition of like, well, this new thing is coming in now. Is that a good fit? Yeah, maybe. This, a really good fit. Oh, flow state there, creativity here.
And still things on a daily basis, like things pop up into your reality, and you gotta make it. Yeah, you gotta make a decision, right? Like, do I want to do this? Do I don't want to do this? It's all about decisions, right?
Yeah.
And like what I recently found for myself, how to like surf that wave is by having pillars, right? So I went away, like in my chapter one, I always had goals. make this amount of money, practice this amount of hours. But now I have these pillars, and I just follow these pillars, right? So I know what it's basically like the vision. Okay, so I don't have a goal where I want to go with music, but I just follow my highest excitement. Then I know, like, okay, all what's about music, that's a yes. So it helps me to navigate when I'm riding that wave.
Could one say it's more, instead of a destination goal you're aiming towards, it's more about, I know kind of what direction I'm going, but I have no clue what the end destination is going to be. It's probably just somewhat in that direction, and let's see where the path really takes me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. That's exactly the point where I see, like, where life and the magic really can happen. Right? So you don't do anything wrong by doing the things that you truly enjoy.
Yeah.
Because that comes from a heart. That really comes deeply from your heart. And for example, music. If you enjoy making music just for the sake of making music, then you're doing the right thing. It's not about, I enjoy doing music because I want validation and attention from the audience or being someone.
Yeah. It always comes from within. It's like, ironically, like the first big domino effect. The first domino that needs to be before everything else comes in place. I mean, thinking about the analogy of the destination rather than the direction. Like, I realized from my life that big goals have these clear destinations, and then there's probably many times where along the path I need to choose between, like, this way or that way. And it's like, this way has been the way that I thought was the way all the time for many years now, and I've been clear about that should be the way. But then my intuition is kind of like, or something saying like, it almost feels like 52% it should be this way, but that doesn't make sense. Like,
yeah.
And then you're in front of this, a little bit of a test of like,
it's
are you now gonna go into
so true
your alignment, or are you gonna keep on?
I think that's a very important thing to know. So if you make a decision, maybe for a partner, for a country, for a business, a direction, universe, God will come to you constantly, like, oh, are you still sure?
Yeah.
Do you really want to do that? You know?
Yes. Same with the mushrooms, right? All right, that sounds good that you have that intention or that goal with this trip, but that's not what it is. Let's go here instead. This is what you need.
Yes.
Yeah. Super. What do you think is one of your biggest challenges these days? Like we touched upon it now, but when you wake up today and last couple of days, what's on your mind? Like theme for the month, or what's the current challenge?
I'd say, like, the current challenge is really to get to know myself even more, staying in that alignment, right?
Right.
Staying in alignment, because it can easily happen that you, like you said, like you can drift away, and it's all like unknown, right? It's unknown territory, and sometimes you got to make a step into the unknown and then find out, like, oh, okay, that's not for me. But constantly working on yourself, observing yourself, knowing yourself, and then also take action and make decisions, and sometimes also saying no to certain things. And yeah, for me, it's like I still have this urge and this energy and this power of, like, bah, you know, there's a lot inside of me that wants to be released. But I know that I have to trust the process and now don't rush anymore, right? So sometimes I have this urge, like this morning, I told you this before. This morning, I just felt myself in a weird kind of state and somehow tired, and I just had to move. I went on a scooter, put on some music, and I was like, I gotta leave Bali. Like, I gotta go on an adventure, and like my mind goes then to places, and that's something that's kind of my biggest challenge to, like when you feel bad, when you feel bad, to handle yourself, also to allow yourself just to be, and sometimes just to do nothing, right? Because it eventually goes away, and dealing with that, directing your life, that's the challenge, and we're coming back to the responsibilities, right? It's your responsibility, because if you decide for something and it turns out it was not the best thing, it's your responsibility, and dealing with all that, I would say that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, there's always going to be triggers coming up, right?
Yes.
Usually, I mean, can even be on a daily basis, but what's cool is as you're selling off your company and you're freeing yourself, that's when you're giving yourself the opportunity to now spend more time with yourself for more self-awareness. And then once we find more self-awareness, now, it becomes a lot easier to make decisions that are aligned with our highest self and what we actually want to do and what we actually enjoy and value. Of course, we're going to go back to our old self once in a while, temporarily. The triggers, traumas coming up. Feel into those, let them happen, it's okay. And then afterwards reflect, what happened now? Okay, I got triggered like that again, like in the old days, chapter 1. But now, how can I handle it different and know like why it happened? And
so true. It's so funny you mentioned that. It comes up every now and then, because of course I'm now in chapter 2 since 4 weeks. That's what I for sure can say. However, it took like 2.5 years, and now at this point, and there's probably another 2.5 years to really become that person that I initially, or that I am, right? And it's a transformation. And during this transformation, you sometimes lose your identity because you become a new person. You always got to decide. It's sometimes hard. It's not programmed in your mind, in your body. And one example, one day I found myself going to the cafe, opening the laptop, and I was just randomly doing some chapter 1 emails, business stuff that was absolutely not necessary, right? And then after like a half an hour, I'm like, ugh, and I felt, when I do that, I feel so bad. It contracts my body, like, ugh, and I felt bad, and I'm like, wait, what am I doing here? I don't need to do this anymore. Let's go home. I'll go and sing.
A little sleepwalking there, and then like, hold on.
Yes. So it's still, learning how to live with that freedom, how to live with that constant feeling of, or basically I would say like 95% being in a good state, to hold that, right? Not to self-sabotage yourself. Because there's a book from Gay Hendricks, The Upper Limit. I don't know if you know it. He basically describes that we all have this upper limit of feeling good, right? And when you hit that, you automatically sabotage yourself, or your mind sabotage yourself with bad thoughts and different perception of a situation, whatever. And his book is about like how to how to break through that upper
Ceiling,
limit, you
yeah.
know, because it's unfamiliar, because most of humans are wired of like, okay, it's a good time, but then we know it's gonna be we're gonna drop again.
Yeah.
But the fact is, it can be that you can be in this state and even go higher, you know, like enter your zone of genius, how he describes that.
Yeah.
And to hold that, yeah, that's new. You got to learn it.
It's practice like everything else, right? But yeah, unfortunately, it's something most of us don't start practicing until way later in usually our 30s. For some people, even later, right? So yeah, we are blessed in that way of like we can now dig deep on our own personal level and yeah, internal things. So what would you say if you, might be hard to answer then, but if we take a time period of the next 6 or 12 months, what do you think you will keep on focusing on? Is that more self-discovery? Is it more creation in terms of music, your voice?
Yes, so the next 6 to 12 months, the theme I'll say for the next year is exploration. Exploration, especially in music, in being an artist. What does it mean? And yeah, just do and try out all the things in art that I would like to do, or I think like, okay, that's something for me, because I gotta find it out.
Yeah. Amazing. Last couple of questions here for you, Mark. What does deeply aligned mean to you?
What does deeply aligned mean for me? Deeply aligned means for me staying in my absolute truth, being honest, absolutely honest to myself, and also a lot of saying no to things, to people, to opportunities that are not fully aligned with my heart, with my values, with my 4 pillars, where I want to go. And really, yeah, staying true to yourself. Not doing something out of neediness or because you think it's gonna be cool or for any kind of validation or attention.
I like that answer a lot. For the next guest, if you could answer, or if you could ask them any type of question, without knowing the guest also, what kind of question would you like to ask them?
How spiritual should we be as humans? Because we are here on this planet, in this hologram, whatever it is, to have the human experience, right? And it is very, very important to know that there is something else to what we can see right now here. And there are so many teachings, so many teachers, so many ways going all to the same, leading all to the same. And finding that balance between being spiritual and having the human experience, right? Because I think when we die from this phase of the game,
Yes.
we can then be spiritual, right?
Yeah.
So that would be my question: how much spirituality, how spiritual should we be?
Exactly. What's the balance
What's the
between
balance?
that exploration and in this practical 3D world, basically? Yeah.
Mhm.
If people would like to get in contact with you, where could they best find you?
People can find me on Instagram. It's at I am Marc with a C, Samuel.
Amazing. Thanks so much for coming on the show, man. It's been a very fun conversation.
Thank you so much, Chris. It has been an honor and honestly always a dream of mine being on a podcast. So thank you very much for this.
Awesome that this happened to be the first one. Amazing. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much.